Okay, so ask permission to say a few words on Dhamma. Today is August 12th, 2018. This is our normal Sunday program. And something the Buddha taught, one of his central teachings was, he said, monks, if you know as I do the benefits of generosity, you wouldn't let a single meal go by without having given some of it first. So the Buddha illustrating the benefits of generosity for us, and with the example of giving away food or giving away part of one's meal. And the point being that to give whenever there's an opportunity to give, if you knew the benefits of generosity, you would give whenever there was an opportunity to give. But because we don't see that clearly, we're obscured by ignorance and craving and delusion. We don't use all of the opportunities that we have to give. So we don't, because we don't fully see those benefits of generosity. So the Buddha used these different images to illustrate the results of certain actions, of certain things, such as generosity. So something I learned at Wat Nong Bapong is that something some monks will do, if it's their birthday, they'll do some sort of service or give something to the monastery. So there was one monk who, it was his birthday, so he decided to repaint the entire sala at Wat Pah by himself. So it's a huge sala, and he's just decided he's going to repaint it by himself. And he didn't finish it. It took him 2 or 3 days, actually. He couldn't finish it in one day. But just such a good energy, putting such a good energy into it, and everybody else who saw him felt good just seeing him doing it. And there wasn't any sense of, I hope somebody helps me out, or, oh, this is going to be a real burden. But he's just so happy to do it. So the Buddha said generosity is more pure when we feel joy when we give, when we don't regret the act of giving, when we feel joy when we give, then that's said to be a purified form of generosity. And generosity is far more fulfilling. Say giving something is far more fulfilling and satisfying than receiving something. Giving something is far more of a fulfilling and good experience than receiving something. But that usually goes against the way we think. But if we consider it, think of the joy we might experience when we get what we want. So, like, say, Tan Sudiko's father offered these new power tools, and I really like power tools, so there's this sense of like getting something I like or getting something I want. But then the charge from that lasts for a very short period of time. And if I compare that to, like, say, giving something, say, giving some sort of service to a senior monk, or giving giving time to somebody that's something that's like the gift that keeps on giving. That result from that lasts much longer on into the future than, say, just receiving something. But it's not so easy to see. So the Buddha also said about generosity that the result of a gift given belongs to the giver. The result of a gift given belongs to the giver. So that's also kind of like goes against the grain, not really how we would normally think. So generosity, the Buddha would teach generosity is the root of the path, the beginning of the path. How we learn how to give up. First we learn how to give, and then we learn how to give up. So we give material things, we give service, then we give up. We learned how to give up things that, or give away things that burden us, that we should just get rid of, such as our views and opinions, things that aren't helpful for us or for others. Then we give those up, and then we aren't burdened by them, and we are the recipients of the result of that form of giving up in terms of a sense of ease and coolness and comfort and happiness. So once we learn how to give in terms of material things or in terms of time or service, then we learn how to give up in terms of our whatever is unwholesome, whatever isn't helpful on the mind. We learn how to give that up. So there's like dana, that's like giving, but then there's chaga, which is the higher form, which is relinquishment. You can think of it in terms of like giving to the practice, giving time to the meditation, actually doing the practices that the Buddha recommended we do, such as the metta kammatthana or the asubha kammatthana. This takes like a sense of giving or a sense of relinquishment to actually do these practices, or even to actually mentally recite Buddho when we're meditating, rather than just letting the mind follow its moods and habits, and rather than letting the mind just proliferate according to its default tendencies, to actually put the effort into Buddho as a form of generosity as well, just because it's something which we have to like give to our meditation. And there can be like a block to giving, like some sort of mental block, because we think, oh, maybe we're going to lose something, or it's going to be difficult. But then we find whenever we give, the result is a sense of joy, a sense of ease. There may be a little bit of effort, a little bit of difficulty involved, but it's not much when compared to the result that we get back from it. So the Buddha also talked about blessings, what we call mangala, and there's different people saw blessings or defined mangala in different ways in the time of the Buddha. So there was like the mangala of sights, the mangala of sounds. So like one way mangala or blessing was defined as if there's an auspicious sight, or you see an auspicious number, or you see an auspicious cloud or an auspicious shape, that's considered a blessing or a mangala. So some people would consider that a blessing, and some people would consider hearing an auspicious sound to be a blessing. And people would argue and debate what was a true blessing. Was it a sight? Was it a sound? Was it some sort of good smell? Or was it something pleasant? Or was it having a good idea? Was that a blessing? So people would talk about this and debate the true meaning of mangala, the true meaning of blessing. And hence, then not just the human beings would debate this, but the devas. The debate made it to the deva world, and the devas couldn't figure out what a blessing was either, so then a deva comes down and asks the Buddha, what is a blessing? And the Buddha then goes into describe the highest blessings, the 38 different blessings that constitute the true definition of mangala in the way the Buddha chose to use the term. So briefly, we go through the first few blessings, not associating with the foolish, associating with the wise, and honoring those worthy of honor. These are the highest blessings. It goes on, living in places of suitable kinds, with the fruits of past good deeds, guided by the rightful way. These are the highest blessings. So that's a reflection, like whatever good we have, one, it comes from associating with good friends, and two, it comes from our past good deeds, how we receive them. They come back to us because of the good seeds that we've planted. Then it goes on, accomplished in learning and craftsman skills, accomplished in learning and craftsman skills with discipline, highly trained, speech that is true and pleasant to hear. These are the highest blessings. So accomplished in learning, one has learned much, retained much. This is like the Bahu Satcha. This is it. One example of that is like it comes from, say like if we don't do any study, there's just no way any of us could give a Dhamma talk if we hadn't done any study. It doesn't just appear on its own. We might have like a certain energy or something we might want to say, but without having done the study, then there's no context, there's no vocabulary to express ourselves in the way of the Dhamma, the way of the teaching. That's why Pacceka Buddhas, even though they're fully enlightened, they can't teach. There's no dispensation. They don't have any vocabulary or any words to describe their attainment. But because we have Sakyamuni Buddha, we have the Buddha's dispensation and the whole vocabulary, the formulation of the Four Noble Truths, and so on, we're able to talk about it. But just acknowledging that we couldn't come up with that kind of thing on our own. It's based on the learning. So the learning, the intellectual learning is a blessing in terms of being able to both internalize and then explain, giving us like a vocabulary or a framework to be able to explain these things. And accomplish in learning and craftsman skills, the sense of like knowing a craft or learning a craft, practice and meditation, and even things like the Vinaya, following the Vinaya is a type of craft. It's like an art to be able to do it properly. And anybody who has learned some sort of craft knows that you gain a feel for it over time, and there's just no way you can just get it from a manual. You actually have to practice it, put in the hours until it becomes second nature, and then you can gain a feel for it or some sort of muscle memory for it, and then you become accomplished in that craft. So, say like meditation or following the Vinaya, or if you talk about the practice as a whole in general, the path is a craft of the heart. So you're learning how to find skillful and creative ways to deal with unwholesome energies that are rising and planting good seeds, wholesome energies. And you're having to develop like a dexterity and an incredible skillfulness in terms of like reading things, reading situations, knowing how to react skillfully. Because that's like when we say letting go is kind of a vague thing. It's not really clear to me anyway, like what letting go means. Like when I hear about letting go, like, well, okay, let go. Like, well, what is that? What do I do? Just sort of let go. And it's kind of vague, and it's just, sometimes I've misunderstood this in the past, like letting go means just let my mind just proliferate on and do its normal thing, but obviously that's not correct. And also being really tense and controlling the mind also isn't correct. So I think when the teachers talk about letting go, like what it means to me is like skillful response, because everything in our life and everything in our experience is like a response. We're always responding to what's arising in our experience, whether we respond with holding on, or we respond with trying to get rid of, or we respond with indifference. It's always like we're always like consciously choosing a response. So letting go, I think, is more like it's like a skillful response to experience in terms of using the Dhamma to respond to whatever is arising. And that takes real kind of mindfulness and skill, and we have to be on top of things. So like when there's like a sense of learning a craft, then there's a sense of like really developing skill until it's automatic. Speech that is true, pleasant to hear. That's also quite liberating, I think. Just true speech. One of the other monks was talking about that earlier today. Just the sense that truth. You don't have to. Like if you use speech that's untrue, then there's always like a mental tension, like having to still prop it up, hold it up, keep it going, still make it seem like, try to hide the fact that it wasn't true. So, but if truth always just stands up for itself, so there's no need to prop anything up. It stands on its own. Speech that is true. Sometimes we might use speech that's true, but we're just like really blunt with somebody, so it's not pleasant to hear. So the Buddha has these two qualities of speech that is both true and pleasant to hear. Or sometimes we might think something's true and we might be say, quote unquote, straightforward or blunt with somebody, and it turns out it was just our perception or our assumption that it was true, and so that wouldn't fulfill either quality. Or sometimes speech, we might speak something that's pleasant but not true, so that doesn't follow the sense of like being a blessing, but speech that is both true and pleasant to hear. Buddha referred to that as a blessing. Providing for mother and father's support and cherishing family, ways of work that harm no being, these are the highest blessings. So this really just kind of speaks for itself. Ways of work that harm no being. This whole like progression of blessings in the Mangala Sutta. It's kind of referring to how the whole path unfolds from being a layperson to being a practitioner, to being a more devoted practitioner, to being a undertaking the ordination or becoming a religious seeker, all the way to liberation. But each step pertains to the whole path as well. This is one of the beauties of the Buddha's teaching, is that each Dhamma laid out by the Buddha, or each step, contains the whole path within it. So like ways of work that harm no being, this refers to our livelihood. And for lay people, this would be work that's not harmful, such as dealing in intoxicants or the killing of living beings. And for religious seekers, for samanas, this refers to the right livelihood of how we receive our support in terms of the alms round, and also in terms of the offerings that we receive for the supports of our life, so that there's a whole list, like not hinting, not trying to get gain with gain, not belittling, not pressuring, all these factors of right livelihood for samanas, because we also see that it could be harmful for both our own spiritual development if we were to have wrong livelihood in terms of being a samana, and also it could be harmful in terms of the faith of the laity if we don't have the proper way of relating or the proper livelihood for samanas. Steadfast in restraint and shunning evil ways, avoiding intoxicants that dull the mind, heedfulness in all things that arise, these are the highest blessings. So we say steadfast in restraint and shunning evil ways. That's more like a reflection on kamma, that the sense of like shying away from unwholesome action. The more we practice, the more we see it. There's like this sense of shying away from it, or automatically there's certain like no-go areas. The Buddha called this the virtue dear to the noble ones. And avoiding intoxicants that dull the mind, heedfulness in all things that arise. This comes back to that sense of skillful response. So we don't, not losing ourselves in situations. If there's, say, a pleasant situation, not like losing ourselves in the pleasure of that situation, or if there's an unpleasant situation, not losing ourselves in terms of the getting lost in a difficulty of a situation. So there's this sense of like a very sober stepping back, like a very sober stepping back, and like uprightness in situations where we don't get stuck in situations, so that we can respond skillfully and use our wisdom, use our discernment to find like a way forward if there's some sort of difficult situation we have to deal with, or any situation, whether it's like receiving offerings, or we're on the alms round, or we have some sort of difficult interaction with somebody. Then we come back to ourselves, we come back to our center, and we find like a response or a way forward from there, rather than just like having some sort of default knee-jerk reaction. So that's like heedfulness in all things that arise. And I skipped 3, so I'll head back. There's generosity and a righteous life, offering help to relatives and kin, acting in ways that leave no blame. So generosity and a righteous life, this is like to the point that practicing generosity, the point that it becomes habitual. This is really the lineage of Luang Por Chah, what he's teaching in terms of that sense of generosity just becoming so ingrained that it's just automatic. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for the small acts of generosity that we have towards each other. So I was just at Spirit Rock at this family camp, and was there for 5 days, and a lot of focus on generosity. There's parents, there's children ages 4 to 15, and they've got sing-alongs about how to be generous with each other, and practices for spreading goodwill to oneself, and goodwill to your family and friends, and goodwill to the world at large. But sometimes, like, people, both young and old, start to feel like, well, yeah, I'm not actually that generous, or I'm not that good. So Gil Fronsdale led a meditation one day or like an exercise where if he would say something, and then if you had done that before, then you would stand up. And then he would say, well, if I can get everybody to stand up, I'll ask a number of questions. If I can get everybody to stand up, then we can be convinced that there is goodness in the world. So, and then it ended up that everything he asked, everyone in the room stood up for every single question, whereas he was going to ask a number of questions to try to slowly get everybody to stand up. But then, so the first question was, have you ever opened a door for somebody else? And so when he asked, have you ever opened a door for somebody else, just everybody in the room stood up. And then I can't remember, that was the one that stuck in my mind, but oh yeah, have you ever complimented somebody else on something good that they did? And then everybody in the room stood up. So just these small things that we don't really give ourselves recognition for, but like little drops of water, they add up over time. Or even every time we bow to the Buddha image, it just adds up like little drops of water. That goodness adds up over time, and we actually start to receive the results of that and become very full with goodness. And something interesting about that, I guess I could say also, is that it's kind of, because I see this in myself, it's kind of funny that there's still like this sense that like I'm like egotistical or full of myself if I recognize myself as a good person. So like, oh, or I'm not being humble if I recognize that I have goodness. And but where does that come from? It doesn't make any sense. So just recognizing things in terms of the truth of the way things are. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and we all have goodness, and then that goodness ought to be recognized, or even owned in a sense of we can recollect that or rely on that. One of the Buddha's teachings is to recollect your own generosity. Respectfulness and of humble ways, contentment and gratitude, and hearing the Dhamma frequently taught, these are the highest blessings. So respect is one of the roots of goodness, and respect is a sign of discernment and intelligence. And so respectful, humble. Humble means we don't like lord it over others, or we don't have to like show ourselves off as being special in any way. We can just live normally. Respectfulness of humble ways, contentment, having a sense of being able to rely on that goodness we've already cultivated for ourselves, to have a sense of ease and comfort as we go about our lives. Gratitude, one of the type of person that's rare in the world is one who expresses their gratitude. So the fact that gratitude being another strong root of goodness, or a root of the wholesome. Hearing the Dhamma frequently taught. So lending an ear, hearing the Dhamma, reading Dhamma, starting to internalize and use the Dhamma. And we do this often. Patience and willingness to accept one's faults, seeing venerated seekers of the truth, and sharing often the words of Dhamma. These are the highest blessings. And so this point, it's like one becomes a speaker on the Dhamma, and as a speaker on the Dhamma, that's also a deeper way of reflecting on Dhamma. One of the reasons the Buddha would have his monks teach was in order to, when we teach something, we learn it at a deeper level, whatever it is, whether it's math or English or Dhamma, then we learn it at a deeper level. Or if we teach somebody a craft, whatever that craft may be, then we learn that craft ourselves at a deeper level as we teach it. So speaking often on Dhamma, discussing Dhamma, patience, kanti, so a sense of, okay, you're doing it, now just be patient endurance, you're in it, you're doing the practice, now don't give up. And patience, this also, there's a set of Dhammas, kanti and soracha. These are patience and humility. These are two qualities which make a person beautiful. So patience and humility. A sense of willingness to have a strong sense of honesty in terms of the revealing of transgressions or faults if we undertake the precepts, especially the precepts of the renunciates, the 8 precepts, 10 precepts, 227 precepts. These are like the willingness to see if we've fallen into a transgression, seeing a transgression as a transgression, and then revealing it and using the 4 powers of confession that we can use to purify our kamma. So like revealing it and then determining, having remorse about it, determining to not do it again, and then actually not doing it again. Those are the 4 powers of confession. So that's patience and the willingness to accept one's faults. That's pointing to that sense of the 4 powers of confession and the sense of how to react skillfully when we do something wrong or possibly make negative kamma. Seeing venerated seekers of the truth. So this is something which can inspire us and keep us in the practice, help us to give rise to a sense of faith. This is something which would come up on Tudong. I remember in 2013 being with Tanti Tapo on Tudong, and there'd be times when we'd just be walking down the highway and just nothing is happening. And there's this kind of like these drudgery days where you're just walking and walking and walking, and cars are just kind of zooming past you all the time, and you're thinking like, oh, this kind of sense like nothing's happening, and we're just walking and wearing ourselves out, and then we would get to a town or something, or somebody would stop and talk to us, and they say, oh, I drove by you on the highway 2 days ago, and I was just so happy to see monks, and just questioning like, when I saw you guys, I just thought, what am I doing with my life? So that's like the blessing for that person. That's the blessing of seeing venerated seekers of the truth. Now we get into the holy life lived with ardent effort, seeing for oneself the noble truths and the realization of Nibbana. These are the highest blessings. So ardent and committed, like in the Satipatthana, one is mindful, ardent, resolute in terms of skillful qualities, wholesome qualities, and ardent, committed to the holy life. So this is like the part of the Mangala Sutta where the Buddha is talking about the entry, like the entry into the samana life. It's patience and willingness to accept one's faults. That part is, you could be a samana, you could be a layperson, but this one is clearly in the samana life, ardent, committed to the holy life. And then the realization of the Four Noble Truths, realization of Nibbana, and these are the highest blessings. And then the final 3 would be, although involved in the world or although touched by the world, unshaken, the mind remains beyond all sorrow, spotless, secure. These are the highest blessings. And this refers to the mind of the Arahant, which we all aspire to. And even though Nibbana or even a stage of enlightenment might seem really, really far off, we can reflect on these things, because the Buddha said recollection of Nibbana is a skillful and necessary recollection in order to gain some sort of like idea or understanding of it, so that the mind, the enlightened mind, contacting the world, there's sense contact coming in through the sense bases, yet it's unshaken, undisturbed, clear and cool within that, contacting, coming in through the senses. They who live by following this path know victory wherever they go, and every place for them is safe. These are the highest blessings. And so the Buddha caps it off, this sense of having completed the path or having finished the path, that sense of victory. No matter where they go, that place is safe. So it's so often that we might go out of the monastery or out into the world, or even in the monastery, we might feel there's a fire nearby and it's not safe. So, like, where is the safe place? Where is the safe refuge? So this is pointing directly to like that sense of refuge within the heart, within oneself. And then, no matter where one goes, there's this sense of victory or complete protection within the Dhamma. So the Buddha highlighting that as a blessing. This Mangala Sutta is a very important teaching because it goes directly against that sense of always trying to look for auspiciousness in sights and auspiciousness in sounds and auspiciousness in all of the sense bases, and is saying, well, the true blessings, the truest blessings, are coming from the cultivation of generosity and the walking of the path. So, and this is something we make a conscious decision to do, and so it's up to us. It's our choice whether we embark on this path or not. And so these are the recollections on the highest blessings, which are very important to think about, very important to recollect often, and can help us to put ourselves onto the path where we want to be. So we're going in the right direction towards the freedom that the Buddha is teaching about, the freedom from attraction and aversion, the freedom from bias, the sense of relinquishment and giving up of our hindrances and our views and opinions and anything else which is harming ourselves and others. And these are the highest blessings. So I'll leave that for today as an offering.
Book 2, page 46.